Now, of course, as you guys have noticed, we have the meme cam is back. So I'm happy about that. The meme cam. So, all right, we have some 30 for 30s to do today. First of all, I want to welcome everybody. For those of you who just came in, man, you missed a dope hype session. Oh, because I noticed like it jumped 10 people just now. You missed a dope hype session, man. A dope hype session. You know what I mean? But listen, we're going to start off with 30 for 30. All right, we got 3 of them to do. They're not going to be very long. All right. And basically, the 3 we're going to do is we left off with the best high-sci movie. We're going to start this one off, number 15, the top 5 Godzilla villains. Then we got the Millennium series, the worst era, or 1 or 2 gems. Release the Gareth cut. Yeah. Wish he had one. And then, of course, we're going to start off with Orga, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge because as we get further and further into the series, a lot of these one-off monsters, there's a little bit less information out there about them. So, yeah, that was tough to gather. But we got a little bit of stuff here. Motherfucking Dono, Ethan Bradshaw, $2. Hodan gonna bend kaiju over in this film. You mean Rodan? Okay. Unless you meant to say it like that. All right, here we go. And I do want to try and get through these quick because I want to, I obviously want to get to you guys. So here we go. Number 15. All right. This video, we're going to do the top 5 Godzilla villains. Top 5 villains, not adversaries. So if I don't include Mothra in this list, you know why. Okay, so at number 5, I have Destroyer. Yes, Destroyer. Obviously, a great challenge for Godzilla during Godzilla vs. Destroyer. Not only that, but Godzilla had to deal with the fact that he was on Meltdown. But even though he was on Meltdown, his atomic breath was amped up to a whole nother level. And gotta give credit where credit's due. Destroyer ate them. He ate them and he kept coming. Also, Destroyer definitely one of the top villains because very vindictive kaiju. As we all know, if you've seen the movie, he basically took Junior, flew around in circles, and then dropped him like a ton of bricks. And it was a very sad moment. And Destroyer, not only that, but if you remember early in the movie, before he became a huge kaiju, he basically decimated a whole security and a whole building full of security guards. And really with full conviction. You know, this monster was clearly just very villainous. That's why he's number 5. Okay. Number 4. Can anyone in chat guess what number 4 is? I'm going to go with Kaiser Ghidorah. Yes, Kaiser Ghidorah. An iteration not to be confused with King Ghidorah. Pretty much the same monster in certain levels in terms of the 3 heads, but Kaiser Ghidorah was very different looking in other areas. And this iteration of Ghidorah was very strong. Very powerful. If you guys remember the movie Final Wars, the gravity beams actually for once lifted something. In this case, Godzilla, lifting him off the ground, gave Godzilla a very hard time. Again, a one-off monster. We didn't get to see him beyond that, but it was a memorable fight, and he had 2 forms. He had that really weird, big football helmet form, but it was the final form that I thought was really good. Okay, so at number 3, I'm going to go with Gigan. Yes, Gigan. Now, we've seen him in many movies, including Final Wars. And the first time him and Godzilla met, he cracked open the bridge of Godzilla's nose, made him bleed. If you were a kid watching this movie back in those days, you would have been very surprised to see that. It wasn't very often that Godzilla bled in any movie. But this one, and then the one after that, well, not after this one, I think it was it Hedorah that came out after Godzilla vs. Gigan, or was it Mechagodzilla? Either way, we wouldn't see Godzilla bleed again until Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which is what didn't come out that far after. And yeah, and Gigan has given him issues in many other movies as well. He didn't give him too much of a problem in Final Wars. I mean, they had a pretty good fight, but at the end of the day, at least the first Gigan he faced, I think that one he ripped his head off. So Gigan, definitely a very popular villain. And I would say I would hope we see him again in some of the Toho movies that are to come in the 2020s. And I think we will. I think he's definitely someone they're going to revisit. All right, so at number 2, got to be Mechagodzilla. Has to be Mechagodzilla. He's fought Mechagodzilla many times, but the Mechagodzilla that I aim for in this particular list is, of course, the one from the 70s. The one that we saw later on were controlled by humans, and then, of course, Kiryu, which many people refer to him as Kiryu, even though it's sort of a form of Godzilla. But I would say Mechagodzilla from the 70s was definitely a pain in the ass for Godzilla to deal with. In Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, he needed help beating him at the very end of the movie. And then, of course, we know later we did see Godzilla have to deal with not only Mechagodzilla, but also Titanosaurus in Terror of Mechagodzilla. As you guys all know, I love this design. It's my favorite design of all the Mechagodzillas. And definitely, I think it's probably hard to argue that he's number 2. And at number 1, you guessed it, King Ghidorah, of course. Now, I have made many arguments before that I think Ghidorah has been a little bit softly represented in the Toho series, but we can't take away from the fact that most of the time he fought Godzilla, Godzilla was not alone. In King Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, or Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, it took Rodan and Mothra as well as Godzilla to take him down. In Destroy All Monsters, it took a party of them to take him down. Now, Godzilla later met Ghidorah in the 90s, but we all know that this iteration of Godzilla was very OP. So much so that he blew the center head off, and then later, Ghidorah came back as Mecha King Ghidorah, and Godzilla still took care of business. But I'm also basing this on what we've seen so far from the trailers and the TV spots. This American iteration of King Ghidorah looks extraordinarily powerful, and I also believe that that's going to play a role as to where he ranks in the villain category. But anyway, yes, those are my top 5. Destroyer, Kaiser Ghidorah, Gigan, Mechagodzilla, and Ghidorah. Now, I want to talk about the Millennium series. Now, I think we all agree that the Heisei series is, for the most part, far and above the best era of the Godzilla movies. Even though I personally love the Showa era, that's my favorite personally, I think the overall consensus is that the Heisei era is the best one. And I can't really argue that. It's got some great movies in it. Then we move to the Millennium series, the Millennium era, I should say. And, well, there are a couple of gems in here. I think for me, there's really only one. And for me, well, really only one. And I gotta say it's GMK. I think GMK is the crown jewel of the Millennium era. Now, I do like Final Wars, but I like it for different reasons. It was a movie full of gravitas and cheese that I could appreciate, and I felt it was a strong send-off for Godzilla. They really made him OP in Final Wars. I mean, he basically blew a meteor out of the sky with his atomic breath in space. Yeah, that's really OP. Now, you could argue that in Megaguirus, he was fucking with black holes. Who knows? But a lot of the movies in this era were not all that great. Now, there are people who have their favorites. I understand Godzilla 2000 is a big favorite. A lot of people like Orga. Again, I've never been a fan of Orga. I've never been a fan of that look that Godzilla 2000 had because he looks like a rat to me. It's grown on me a little bit over the years. I think mainly because of the dorsal plates. I like how exaggerated they are. But otherwise, I would say GMK Godzilla is probably my favorite in this era by far. And GMK as a movie in and of itself really, really made Godzilla out to be a villain. There was no question in this movie that Godzilla was a straight villain. And he was taking on, well, mainly two monsters at the same time. He pretty much wiped the floor with Baragon in the early going. But he was fighting Mothra and Ghidorah towards the end, and he pretty much decimated Mothra. And once Ghidorah got that extra oomph to become Grand King Ghidorah, it was a great fight, but for the most part, Godzilla was just unstoppable in GMK. And I would say, if you look at the Millennium Era, I would have to say that for me personally, if you're looking at a true gem, a classic of a movie that I think a lot of people enjoy for the right reasons, because it's just a great representation of Godzilla. And we also got to see some monsters we hadn't seen in a long time, like Baragon. I would say GMK is the crown jewel of the Millennium Era. And if I had to pick a second movie, I would say that for me personally, Final Wars was a whole lot of fun. I also love that suit a lot. That Final Wars suit was just phenomenal. He was very sleek in that suit. He was OP. It was a bit of a cheesy movie, but it also gave me a lot of nostalgia for like Destroy All Monsters type of movie. And there was some stupid shit, you know, like when he was fighting Anguirus and King Caesar. And what I think it was Rodan, and then he kicks Anguirus, or he misses Anguirus like he was trying to block a soccer kick. You know, I mean, what can you say? And of course, we also got to see the sea monster in that movie, which, you know, wasn't a highlight for me personally. I don't like the sea monster, as many of you know. But I would say GMK for me is the crown jewel. Some of the other movies were okay. Godzilla Tokyo SOS was all right, but again, at this point, we had already seen Mothra before. We'd already seen Mechagodzilla a whole lot. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of Godzilla 2000, wasn't a fan of Orga. One of the things I love about Godzilla 2000 is the ending, when he basically blasts the whole city. That's one of my favorite parts. But I would say overall, the Millennium Era, for me, the crown jewel is GMK. And then my personal favorite is Godzilla Final Wars. Definitely the gravitas of that, the cheesiness. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. So now on to the next one for 30 for 30. We're going to talk about Orga. Now, again, as I said before, not a big fan of Orga. Not a big fan. But there's a lot of people who like him. Whether or not we ever see him again remains to be seen. What I'm about to share with you is not something I wrote. It was something I found regarding Orga. And it says, Orga is a millennium. Oh my God, a millennium. That mutates after absorbing Godzilla's DNA. He's a hunchback monster with a thick, rubbery gray hide. I don't think rubbery is the right term, but I guess they're talking about the suit. Most prominent are his massive 3-clawed hands. Excuse me, I need a drink here. Which he uses to walk like a gorilla, though only in the movie. In all of his video game appearances, Orga walks normally. He has a short, thick tail and a short neck as well. His face has a square jaw with a prominent chin, lined with rows of serrated teeth. He can fire energy wave from a hole in his left shoulder, and he is able to leap vast distances and heights. He also has an accelerated healing factor. Finally, Orga is able to absorb an opponent's DNA through his bite to gain their abilities and appearance, and can even detach his upper and lower jaws like a snake to unfold a hidden membrane in order to swallow an enemy whole and morph into it. Orga can also direct a Millennium UFO to attack his foes and back up his efforts. Orga is 60 meters, 200 feet tall, weighs 40,000 tons. So, now, in terms of background information on Orga, unlike some of the other monsters, I just couldn't find it. So, motherfucking don't know. Being born in 1999, Final Wars was my first G film, so I've got a soft spot for it. I hear you, man, Ethan. Thank you for the donation, Ethan Bradshaw. Motherfucking don't know, Angelo Luna. Imagine if M11 came back in the Monsterverse and piloted Jet Jaguar. Oh, God. If I imagine that, I might pee my pants. So, now, Orga was a very unique monster. It was very interesting. I wasn't fond of it. I thought, now, to be fair, the final form was much better than what we got for most of the movie, especially when he was perched on top of the building. I wasn't really into that. But the final form was pretty cool. But he was just so I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but he was just so freaking like, I don't know, like he just looked clumsy. The whole design was just clumsy to me. And I wish I could have found more information regarding it. I'm hoping as they start updating the new Godzilla website that we can get more detailed and background information on the monster. Now, I haven't seen that movie in a very long time. In fact, I've only probably seen it once. I do have it on DVD. So if there are any behind the scenes things on the DVD, I just don't remember. So maybe that's something I should check out. But yeah, when you consider all the other monsters they came up with, I would say, and I'm regarding the one-shot monsters, like going back to like Biollante and Destroyer and even Batra, who we didn't talk about, but I would say this is one of the weaker off-shot monsters, one-shot monsters, I should say. Maybe not weak in the sense of, what he did. Obviously he's powerful in the sense of what he can do, but in terms of like retention, for lack of a better term, like garnering my interest to want to see it more, I could breathe easy if they don't ever use him again. Now, that's not to say that if they do, I wouldn't watch it. I would, and I would hope that they make some improvements. But for right now, he's just not my favorite. Godzilla 2000 overall is just not one of my favorite monster movies. Now, it's not ranked that low in my overall ranking when you compare it to like other movies like, Godzilla's Revenge and Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. But it's definitely on the lower scale compared to some of the other movies that I consider to have better monsters and better quality, not only quality monsters, but just maybe even better stories. So, motherfucking don't know, Jacob Hoffer. I want Don Fry back as Captain Gordon. I saw him in a video fighting some tall Japanese guy. It was like an MMA fight years ago. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of you guys are Millennium, like Godzilla 2000 fans, and I get it. That might have been one of the first ones you saw. And usually that's the wonderful thing about Godzilla movies is when you see the first one, it doesn't matter how good or bad it is, you're hooked on it somehow. And that becomes the one that you resonate with over time, no matter how bad it is. I mean, my first Godzilla movie was Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. It's one of the reasons it's my favorite, and Mechagodzilla is my favorite villain. So, yeah. Varan needs to come. Man, Varan would be good in the Monsterverse. No doubt about that.
Thank you for watching E.T.N. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Nation Facebook page.